Yo, what's going on YouTube? Jake Cameo here from CoreGaming, and today we are going to be talking about Ojama. Alright, so we're going to be talking about Ojamas today. This is probably my all-time favorite deck to play. It's a little bit difficult to play in meta right now, but in the upcoming days it is going to be very, very good. It is very, very good right now. The only things that you would really have to worry about as far as this deck would mainly be Ash Blossom. So if you get Ash Blossomed in this deck, it can be very, very painful. You can get called by the grave in this deck. You could even get DD Crowed in this deck. Anything like that. Anything that if you search, you get penalized, or if something goes to your grave, you get penalized. Anything like that, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to kind of work around that, which I know is a lot of side decks nowadays. A lot of people will play Called by the Graves in their main deck, or they will play Ash Blossoms in their main deck. That's just a fact of life. So that's going to be your biggest issue as far as this. But those are only 3 cards, and this deck only really needs 2 to 3 turns to pop off. So if they don't see those cards within that 2 to 3 turns, it's done so. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into this. Starting off with our monsters, we run 1 Ojama Yellow, 1 Ojama Black, and 1 Ojama Green. So we run 1 of each of these guys. I'm not super comfortable playing that low of an amount, but I will say that with this specific build, usually on turn 1, or round 1 I should say, out of the 3 rounds you'll face your opponent, round 1 is the round that you do not want to see these guys at all. You want these guys to be used in a specific way as far as this deck. So if you draw one of these guys, that's gonna hurt a lot. You can come back from it, but it's not gonna get you that 1-turn kill like you were looking for. So to go with our Ojamas, we also run 2 Ojama Blue. So Ojama Blue is really good for that turn 1. If you play him and he gets destroyed, great, you get your combo the very next round. He's also good for turn 1 just because you can crash him into something and then get your combo going as well. So yeah, he's going to go in and search you 2 of your Ojama cards in case you're unfamiliar with his effect. And then we run 3 of each of the ABC pieces. So A Assault Core, B Buster Drake, and C Crush Wyvern. We run 3 each of those guys, just because you're going to want to use, especially B and C, you're going to want to use their ability to run through your deck and grab as many of these pieces as you can. So that's the main reason why Ash Blossom is going to hurt you. If you get DD Crowed, it's not that big of a deal, but your main things you want to look out for as far as this deck is the Ash Blossom and Called by the Grave, because you want their effects to pop off. Next in the monster lineup, we run 3 Vic Viper T301. This card is absolutely amazing. It's a hand trap in itself. As far as its effect, it reads, when an attack is declared involving your face-up monster and an opponent's monster, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. That's super awesome, but that's not its best effect. Its best effect reads, after that, other light monsters you control gain 1200 attack. That is so huge. That means when you go into your fusion for the ABC cards, that means it's going to have 4,200 attack. That is huge. And the way this deck works, it can be higher than that. If you get 2 of these guys on the field, bro, that's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Say you use your normal summon for this guy, and then you special summon him from the graveyard because you discarded him or something. That is huge numbers. Huge, absolutely huge numbers. Your opponent is not going to know what to do with those kind of numbers. And to ensure that we do get huge numbers on our opponent and their life points, we run 3 Honest. So Honest is going to make their attack basically 0. It's going to be huge. Our monsters are going to be nuts, and they're going to be doing so much damage. So if you guys haven't been able to tell yet, this deck basically runs on searching, getting as many monsters on the board as possible, and then making them as huge as we possibly can, which we get some pretty insane numbers. So going on into our spells, we run 2 Union Hanger, just because the getting our pieces into our hand is super useful, and also attaching one of our Union monsters to the other monster is also very good, because we can just link that monster off and then they both go to the grave, and then we get both of their effects, so that's super huge as well. Then we run 2 Oja Magic. We run 2 Oja Magic just because we don't want to kind of brick with 3, and we only run 1 of each of the original Ojamas, but the plan is that we see this card before we ever see any of those single copy of Ojamas, because when this card, if you don't have those 3 Ojamas in your deck, this card is the biggest brick of the deck in that case, because you have to get this card's effect, you have to have a copy of each in your graveyard, or in your deck, sorry. So if you don't have those cards in your deck, this is a huge brick. So you definitely, for consistency purposes, never want to draw those Ojama cards. So be very careful about any draw cards you put in the deck just for that purpose. This is one of the god cards, but it's also a very, very heavy price if you can't follow the rules, basically. And then speaking of god card, here's the obelisk of god cards, the Ojama Simulation. Ojama Simulation is the card you want to see the absolute most. This is the card that's going to run your deck rampant. This card is going to search out all 3 pieces of your ABC Dragon Buster, or ABC pieces in general. This card not only does that, this card will search out all of your ABC pieces, then recycle your Ojamas, then draw you a card, all in the same turn. It's nuts. I absolutely love this card, and I will never not love this card. It's so good. And then we run the 1 Foolish Burial to get some of the pieces we may want into the graveyard, things like that. You're only really going to use this for your pieces. You might use it for the Vic Viper, but mainly your pieces. And then, just to ensure that our numbers escalate even higher, we run 3 Limiter Removal. I love this card at 3 because if you set this your first turn, you can flip it on your opponent when they attack into your ABC monster, and then it's a 6,000 attack monster, and then on their turn you can use the fusion monster's ability to bring back all of your pieces so that you don't have to destroy it. You basically willingly destroy it so that you can reward yourself with 3 pieces to get another one. So it's a very, very good defensive card, but it's also extremely good on attack. You just have to remember that you do have to destroy any of the monsters that it does boost. And then, just to ensure that we continue with our number growth, I run 1 Psychic Fervor. Psychic Fervor is basically limiter removal, except it doesn't make you destroy your monster, but you do have to take that monster's attack as damage. So be very careful when using this card. Use it very, very early in your combo if you do use it. And then for draw power, we run 1 Hand Destruction. Hand destruction is very good, especially if you have Ojama or Ojamagic in your hand. It's going to get you all the pieces that you need pretty much. We run one Upstart Goblin, and then we run one Slash Draw. I really like Slash Draw just because on turn 1 it's a free card pretty much. It's even more than that if you have Ojamagic in your hand, because you play this, discard Ojamagic, get all of your Ojamas from your deck, and then draw a card for free. And then if it's not on the first turn, then you would have to discard cards from your deck, I think from the top of your deck. Yes, discard 1 card, send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of cards your opponent controls. So if they control nothing, you just draw a card for free, but if they control cards on the field, then you would discard cards from the top of your deck based on that number. And that could also help you, because that could also get some ABC pieces into your graveyard. That way you can use them for a fusion. So it's super, super good for this deck, I think. And that's gonna do it for the spells. Moving on into the traps, we run 3 of the Winged Dragon of Ra of God cards for this deck. This card is going to search out whatever you need. It is a trap though, so you do have to wait a turn. That's why most of the time when you pop off, it's going to be turn 2, just because you may have to wait for this card. That way you can get your combo pieces and then pop off. But usually turn 2 is as far as you go. Your opponent usually never makes it past that unless they can hinder you with Ash Blossom or Called by the Grave. And then I run 2 Drowning Mirror Force and 1 Storming Mirror Force, just because I don't really want to use the cards in my hand for defensive purposes. If I do and they go to the graveyard, that's perfectly fine, but at the same time I want to be popping their cards. That way I can attack directly, get all kinds of damage, and just win. So that's why I run these guys. We can talk about some more options. You can definitely run 3 of this. This card's not completely necessary. I just, like I said, I like for my opponent to think that they can just attack into me, and then they just pay the price. But that's not always the case. So I do like this for backup. Yeah, so that's basically it. They're just mirror forces. They're really good. Now onto the extra deck. So we of course run the 3 ABC Dragon Buster. This card is your go-to card. It's a banish. You can banish with it. This is just, I mean, it's all around an amazing card and very good, especially for the upcoming formats and things like that. So it's a very, very good card. And to kind of go with that, we run 1 of the A to Z Dragon Buster Cannon, just because if we run through all of our copies of, or at least, you know, we run through, let's say we run through 1 of the copies and it's in the grave. We still got 2 left to reveal off of Ojama Simulation. And so we use Ojama Simulation, reveal this card, and then we can special summon this from the grave. So it's like a Monster Reborn. This and Ojama Assimilation basically equal Monster Reborn for this guy. And then because we can get our ABC pieces on the board really quickly, we can also buy ourselves time to gather our pieces with Abyss Dweller. We can also say the same for Tornado Dragon, for either like Orcus heavy decks or back row heavy decks, things like that. We can buy ourselves some time with those guys. And then a little spice that I like to throw in, we've got the Utopia the Lightning package. You could also throw in Utopia the double. You could also do that. That's also a very viable and pretty cool way to do this. I just like Utopia the Lightning because he is, you don't have to wait for the spell, and also when he detaches a card, it's 2, so when you are going to go for that 5,000 attack, you ditch 2 to the grave, and then depending on what those are, you can possibly pop off even further in your main phase 2 if you make it to main phase 2. A lot of the times, like I said, this deck ends on turn 2 battle phase. And then we're going to get into our link monsters, because linking is the best way to get your pieces into the graveyard and reward yourself with a body on the board as well. So linking is the best way to kind of combo piece together. Usually I'll go into Decode Talker first, just because I love his ability that he can target whoever is underneath him and then lower my opponent's attack by that. So that's really cool. He's kind of like an Honest in that regard. I really like that. Then we run the 1 Nightmare Cerberus. He's just, I mean, he's kind of a generic 2. He could also combo link with Underclock Taker. Did I call him Undercode Talker earlier? Anyway, Underclock Taker and Nightmare Cerberus can co-link, getting you to draw a card, etc., etc. And then just kind of like a couple generic ones. I like Decode Talker right now. That could change in the future. I like him right now because the Master Rule 5 thing isn't in effect right now. So you definitely do want those two arrows there. That way you can play 2 of your ABC Dragon Buster Cannon. Or 2 of your Boss Monster. And then I run 1 Triple Burst Dragon, just because the 2 and 3 link monsters are there basically because you're going to use them to get a body on the board while sending your pieces to the graveyard to get their effects, to gather more pieces into your hand and on your field. So the 2 and 3s are kind of there. I like his ability to negate effects and stuff like that. So that's basically why he's there. And then I really like going into Nightmare Unicorn in this deck, just because not only do our traps pop back your monsters, this also pops back a card, and because he's 3 link spots, you could easily use him in your link zone to kind of go down into, or you could use him down to get 2 spots for your ABC cards. So he's very, very good in that regard. And then I run 1 Nightmare Griffin. Nightmare Griffin because he's a pretty big body. He's 2,500 attack, but he's also a light monster. So his effect is really good. Obviously, all the Nightmare card effects are really good in some respect, but because he's a light monster, we can also use our Honest with him, so that makes him really good as far as this deck. And then our last extra deck monster is, of course, Boral Sword Dragon. Boral Sword is just a really good card in general. He's got the 2 link arrows. You could bring him down, he could make another space, etc., etc. Boral Sword is just a very good win condition for any deck. To be honest, he's just a really good card, so that's why he's in there. Now I do kind of want to go over a bit of a side deck. The side decks, it kind of feels a little janky, but at the same time it kind of covers a lot of stuff that needs to be covered. So in the side deck, we run 1 of each of the Ojama brothers. So this is our 2nd copy of the Ojamas. Just because, like I said, round 1 you do not want to see these guys. But round 2, if you happen to see more of them than you normally would, so say you have 2 in your hand, but then you have Ojama Assimilation, that also can pop off really well. But as far as round 1, you want to get those 3 bodies on board as fast as possible, so you don't want to see these guys. You want to run into Ojama Magic or Oja Magic before seeing these guys. But that also can lead into some consistency issues as far as maybe you play Upstart Goblin turn 1 and you draw one of these guys. It's not super great, but if you have these guys in your deck, if you have 2 copies of these guys in your deck, you can still kind of play off of that, but you would just have an extra Ojama card in your hand, possibly for discard fodder, just kind of useless at that point really, but you would be able to come back, so that's a thing. But you definitely don't want to run into these guys too often. That's why I've found that the most consistent way to do it is the one copy of each, but I also don't really agree with that because I love the Ojama cards, and I think that's probably the main reason why these cards are in the side deck. So if you think this is logical enough, then you can do this. If not, you can definitely play whatever you want. Then I run one heavy mech support armor. This is basically just a protection card. You can use him to equip to you your ABC boss monster, and then he's basically just protection. So if he would ever be destroyed, he's just not destroyed. This card is instead. So, and then we run 2 DD Crow, and then we run 3 Called by the Grave. Now we run these because, like I said, Ash Blossom is a huge problem, and Called by the Grave itself is also a huge problem. This can help in a lot of different ways. Called by the Grave more so than DD Crow, but DD Crow is also kind of useful, so that's why they're in here, because you definitely don't want to get Ash Blossomed. So if you have to, and you probably will have to, side these in round 2, just because they're going to try, if they don't already have Called by the Grave or Ash Blossom in their deck, they're probably going to side it in as well, because of this. So then I run 2 Twin Twister for the back row heavy decks, things like that. Plus it can discard your Oja Magic, which is super great. It can discard your ABC pieces. It can discard anything, really. You can discard, the only thing you don't really want to discard in this deck is probably your Honest. You want your Honest in your hand. Anything else can go to the grave. Any other monster in your entire deck can go to the grave. You probably want your Honest in hand. So you can discard all you want to with this deck. It doesn't matter, except for kind of the Honest. And then I run 1 Card of Demise, just in case that I'm finding I'm not running through the deck fast enough. This could more than likely help. It could also hinder a little bit more than help, because like I said, you don't want to draw into the Ojama, so you kind of want as little draw power as possible. So that's why this card is just kind of chilling here, basically. And plus you can't special summon the turn you play it, so that also hinders your turn 2 plays. So this is just a card in the side deck. It could definitely be changed out for something. Like I said, the side deck's a little janky. It's just kind of like coverage cards, I guess. But then I do kind of recommend this card, 3 Grand Horn of Heaven, just because if you go round 1 and you play this card, you pretty much halt your opponent's movements for a while. It's as simple as that. Like, they try to go into Galatea, no thank you, you know, stuff like that. It's just a really good card to have turn 1. If you don't find it turn 1, it's kind of like a whatever, because like I said, you usually pop off by round 2, but if you can get this turn 1, it's really good and really helpful, just like the Mirror Force traps. So, and that's the side deck. Alright, so that's going to do it for my Ojama Limit deck, my Ojama Limits. I actually really love this deck. I'll probably take this time right now to go ahead and put up some pictures on the screen, showing you guys some screenshots of me being really excited, telling this to Jinx, saying, hey man, I got these numbers, hey man, I got these numbers, no, hey man, I got these numbers. I was so excited. I love this. It is absolutely nuts, and this deck is absolutely amazing when it pops off, and it usually pops off. So with that being said, let me know what you guys thought about this deck. Let me know what you guys would change in this deck. Let me know if you guys have any luck with this deck. So in my opinion, this is the best way to play the Ojamas right now, and I'm super glad that I came across this because I have missed this deck so much. And also, do not worry guys, the Lair of Darkness deck is coming up. I'm waiting for literally 3 cards to come in the mail, hopefully in the same package. And then that Lair of Darkness deck will be up and ready for the January ban list. I'm literally just waiting on the mail. As soon as that comes in, I promise I will have you guys that deck profile. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, definitely think about joining the Ojama by hitting that subscribe button. Join the Ojama family. And then if you guys would like to, you can also join our Patreon for as low as $1. That would definitely help us out. It helps us out get packs. It helps us get boxes. It helps us get all these things to make you guys content. Anything that you give us as far as donations, tips, Patreon money, any of that stuff, it all goes back to Yu-Gi-Oh!, back to making you guys content. It goes directly back to you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.